Welcome to the 2022 June Regional Conference call. The project code that you'll be using for today is project code 123. We will be recording this session, and we said we have potential to load. For the most part, we've been loading every quarter. This way, people who are unable to attend this morning and this evening session, they can watch it at a later time, or even if you wanted to go back out yourself to catch certain segments, you sure can. Once we get it all edited, we'll get it up there and loaded for you so you can see it. Just kind of some general reminders. Since we're recording especially, keep your microphones muted to prevent background noise. If you do have your cameras on, just kind of be aware of your surroundings. We don't want to see anybody driving down the road with their iPad in their lap. And if you're having any issues connecting with the audio or what have you, please reach out to your NASDAQ coordinator. Since I'm South Dakota's NASDAQ coordinator, could you reach out to your supervisor first? That would help out a lot since I'm going through this. We'll have questions at the very end. Please raise your hand in the Zoom. We do have the chat box open, but I've tried to minimize that if all possible since we're recording, because a lot of the questions and answers are good to have recorded. That way people who are unable to attend can actually see them as well and hear it, I should say. On the agenda, we're gonna hear from management. Then we'll talk about the June through August surveys, and then we'll kind of go into the NASDAQ administrative updates. With that, we'll run right into management comments. I'll stop sharing for Matt.
All right, thanks, Travis. So hello, everyone. Glad to have you here with us today. I think we have almost 100 people out there, so a good number of you out there. So over the past 2 weeks, we've been doing our June area training workshops, which many of you participated in. And we had our first office hours for June area yesterday, and now we have you all back with us again today. So we've been pumping you full of information on June area. And as those of you that have been with us for a while, you know that's one of our biggest surveys of the year. So what brings us here today? Well, in addition to June area, the work at NASS never stops. We're always conducting a survey. We're always collecting data. So what you'll hear about today are those other surveys we're working on over the next quarter of the year. This won't be in-depth information like what was done for June area, but an overview of the various surveys that are going on. So one of the other things I want to talk about briefly today would be the budget. And then after I get through these things, I'll turn it back over to Travis and the team. But with respect to budget, during the June area trainings, Nick or Christy talked about the budget. They talked about how the budgets are tight and that we have to closely monitor our spending. So the data collection plan that was developed for June area had that in mind. And one of the things that the supervisors out there shared with us is that it would be helpful for supervisors to have more information about the budget. So we're going to be sharing budget information with supervisors daily during the June survey data collection period. So it will include more surveys than just the June area survey. The report will show the budget status as a % of the total budget at the state level. We'll then show for the active surveys the check-in status for each supervisor's enumerators for each active survey. And it will also show the number of hours worked for the quarter for each enumerator in that supervisor's group. So we're going to start sending those daily during the June survey period. And I just want to be clear that the report is tailored for each supervisor. So all supervisors will see the state level budget %. But then the hours worked and check-in rates by survey will be for their enumerators only. And these reports, we anticipate starting those going out starting tomorrow. So I want to talk about a couple of the other surveys that are going on this quarter. So briefly, I'll talk about the Ag Yield and our quarterly survey, the June APS. So the Ag Yield survey, it runs May through November. It's a very important survey for us. The estimates are used to forecast production for major commodities. The data is included in the monthly crop production reports that NASS puts out. It's highly visible and closely watched by the ag industry. So one of the uses of the data, it provides the basis for anticipated domestic supply. So we have these production forecasts, and that feeds into the total supply that's available for or anticipated supply that's going to be available. So that's highly watched and a highly visible report. And then the June APS, or the acreage production and stock surveys. So the June acreage report that's based on this survey is going to be issued on June 30th. It'll be the first published estimate of planted acres post-planting for most commodities, excluding things like winter wheat. So if you remember back in March, last quarter, we did the March prospective plantings report. So that was asking farmers their intentions. What do you intend to plant? And so now we're coming back in June after most planting will be completed and asking them what was actually planted. So that will help us set better planted acreage estimates for that report on June 30th. Now, having said that, I do want to focus on one state in our region for a few minutes here. So I want to talk a little bit about North Dakota. So for those of you that are in North Dakota, you know it's been wet up there. For those of you that keep up with weather in the region, you probably know that. But for those of you that haven't really been keeping up, it's been wet up there. So I wanted to share a few things with respect to North Dakota here, and I'm going to take the chance of doing something live here and sharing my screen. That's always a risk, but we'll see if we can make it work. You see my screen or not? Yes. Okay. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the North Dakota Crop Progress and Condition Report that was released this past Monday. So we do this crop progress and condition report every week. We reach out to extension folks and FSA. Some FSA offices participate in this report, and we put this out. So hopefully a lot of you have seen this. It's one of the most popular reports that NASS does, particularly at the national level, but for our states as well. And I want to look at spring wheat. So if you look at this report, it tells us that spring wheat planted was 27%. That's the progress for spring wheat planted so far this year in North Dakota. Well behind 93% last year and 80% for average. And then emerge was 9%, which was also well behind 55% last year and 42% for the 5-year average. So with planting being so far behind, what's the impact of that? Well, that's what the June survey is going to help us measure that impact. If you think about, I'm not sure how many of you have heard about this, but the University of Nebraska has a drought monitor that they put out. And if we look at the most recent drought monitor, and I can even, that droughtmonitor.unl.edu is the website. And we can click on the High Plains region. And what is this showing us? Well, it's showing us that not much of North Dakota has been dry. Contrast that to last year where they were in a drought situation. And this year is the opposite. It's been very wet. So what we're seeing in North Dakota, it's not, most of the state has no drought, maybe a little bit of abnormally dry and moderate drought along the west side of the state and the northwest corner there. Then if you look at the other states in our region, as we go further south, the drier it gets. But this drought monitor is an excellent tool that we use in the office just to help us see kind of conditionally what's going on out there. And does that kind of match up with what's getting reported on this weekly crop progress data? And it definitely supports, yes, North Dakota is not dry this year. So another product that NASS puts out weekly with the crop condition report are some graphs that go along with that. And I've kind of blown this up a little bit, but I'll show you the title. So this is the crop progress and condition for spring wheat in North Dakota so far this year. And when I was showing you the numbers in the report, it said that spring wheat planted was 27%. So planted is this dark brown line here. That's the current year, 2022. If you look up, so this is the current week is this vertical dashed gray line. If you look up to the next brown kind of dashed line here, that's the average. That was the 80% from that survey that we reported in the survey results. So 80% is the 5-year average. You can see how far behind we are graphically here. One thing that this is also interesting to look at is if you take that planting progress for winter wheat, and we're at 27% where my mouse is, and I go back to the left, we can, once it hits this dashed line, which is the 5-year average, we're usually at 27%, maybe the first week of May. So we are several weeks behind on that planting, and at least 3 weeks behind from where we were last year. So you can see that there's a lot of catching up to do. And we know farmers will do that if they get the dry weather and dry some of those fields out and they can get in, they'll run hard to get that crop in. But we are facing a few weeks behind right now. So as we think about June and we go out there, normally when we conduct this is a post-planting survey. Well, you're going to run into situations when you're out there where they haven't been able to get out there and plant yet. So when you do these observed for June area, you're going to have some fields that haven't been planted, or maybe they've been planted, but it hasn't emerged yet. So there's going to be some situations like that. Again, for those of you that have been around for a while, this rarely happens, but sometimes we have to do re-interview surveys in July to follow up with folks that hadn't been able to plant yet to see if they were actually able to get the crop in the ground. And that would help us true up those planted acres estimates that we set. So I just wanted to talk about that. North Dakota is an interesting situation going on up there this year. One other thing I wanted to touch on just real quick here, and then I'll stop talking, is the NASS has actually started live streaming some of the briefings that we give to the Secretary of Agriculture, the Secretary's designate, who's often the chief economist that attends these briefings on these reports. They started doing that in March with the Hogs and Pigs report. So they've been doing it there's a schedule out there on the NASS website that shows when these live streaming, the live stream schedule for these briefings. So for the crop production report in June, that's based on that ag yield survey, there's going to be a live stream of that briefing on June 10th, which will start at 12:05 Eastern, which is 11:05 our time, of course, and 10:05 for you out there in the Mountain Time Zone. But to watch one of these, you don't have to sign up, you don't have to create an account, have a username or password. But if you're interested in seeing what we share about the survey results, all you have to do is go to the NASS YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/USDA NASS. And I have that up on a different tab here. So this is what our channel looks like. And the prior recordings are out there, so you could go back and watch the May crop production briefing if you wanted to do that. But all you have to do is be on this page at 11:05 or 10:05 on June 10th, and there'll be a spot here for the briefing, and it would live stream. So you could hear live the briefing on the results of the survey. And just for these monthly crop productions, I will add that there is a second briefing that goes along with that from the World Ag Outlook Board, which looks at world supply and demand estimates for various commodities. So I've attended a lot of these. They're pretty interesting. If you went and watched the May one, you'd see that the World Board talked about some of the impact on various commodities, wheat in particular, with what's going on over in Ukraine. Just because what's happening there is impacting what they can do agriculture-wise, and so the forecasts for wheat production over in that region are lower. So it's just some interesting information out there, and what you learn here can also help you, help you see what those results look like and talk to people about their importance. So just wanted to hit on those few things today. Probably taking up more time than I should have already, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Travis, but we're certainly available for any questions. If you ever need any help navigating any of that stuff out on the website, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help you do any of that stuff. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Travis.
Okay, well, thank you, Matt. We always have time for upper management, but of course we do have about an hour scheduled, but I think we might have about an hour and a half. There's a lot of slides to burn through. So continuing on here, we have a kind of a snapshot for the surveys from June to August, mostly to display the program managers and some typical data collection dates, especially for those that are monthly surveys like Ag Yield. On the next slide we have is there's online training. If you go out to the NASDA website, we try to find the current video that's out there to correlate with the surveys that are going on. So if you ever want to go out and watch a video in regards to like June APS, for example, this is what you'd search for on the NASDA website. Looking ahead, like today we're on our second quarterly Zoom meeting. We have 2 more scheduled for the year, and that'll be August 25th and November 17th. We have the second optional June area office hours. That'll be next Wednesday, June 1st, offered at 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. Central. And the corn and soybean objective yield, that's to be determined at this point. We got some dates. I know NASDA coordinators are working with supervisors to lock in dates and locations. Next, we'll turn it over for wheat objective yield.
All right, thanks, Travis. And thanks for everyone for tuning in. And I get to kick it off with wheat objective yield. My name is Devin Van Toft. I'm the program manager, and Sean helps out and edits the Kansas one. So there's our contact information. And if you have any questions, you can contact us. So far, it's been going really well. One thing we always like to encourage, or I always like to encourage at least, is comments. So if you run into a unique situation, it's dry, it's wet, when do we tell out a winter kill, whatever it may be, just write a comment and we read those and really appreciate it. That helps us to understand why counts may be low or high or are non-existent. So we really appreciate comments. So I want to emphasize that first. The second thing I want to mention is just Form A's. They've been Kansas has done their even samples, and the Form A entry seems to have gone really well. The only thing I would like to point out in Form A is item codes 102 and 103. 102 is the total farm winter wheat acres intended to be harvested for grain. So that's all of their winter wheat. Well, item code 103 is just the acres on the selected field. So those should only equal each other if the farmer has one field, which does happen sometimes, but generally they have more than one. So just to make sure to keep those two things straight. Otherwise, A has gone really well. So then I'll talk about Form B. One thing for Form B, we like to encourage you to remember to put in your inaccessibles and refusals. So sometimes I think we forget that when they refuse, we put it on the A form, but we forget to fill out the B form as well. So just remember to put that refusal in if we happen to run across some refusals. And then as a reminder to stay in contact with the farmer. I just looked at the crop progress that Matt was talking about a little while ago, and it looks like winter wheat is headed a little bit above our ahead of schedule in Kansas. I think they're at 86% headed versus normally 80. So harvest will come sooner than average potentially, and it kind of can sneak up on us. So make sure we stay in contact with the farmers. So if they harvest outside of our normal time frame, we can get out there before they harvest and make those clippings and take those, fill out those Form Bs. And if we are doing this outside of normal CAPI dates, and the CAPI isn't open yet, we just ask that you fill out your B form or your paper form and hold it. And then when CAPI opens on the 25th, to put in those dates. But of course, we do not want you to hold your actual clippings. We want you to send those to the lab ASAP as you normally would. And then the gleanings forms. Remember, these are the forms that are divided by 4. So 4, 8, 12, 16, etc. And just a reminder not to forget to do them. Sometimes I think they go to the back burner or you forget. So just I just want to remind you to get out the field and within those 3 days after harvest and get those gleanings. So everyone's important because we only have 1/4 of those. So next slide. And then we're going to finish up with just the due dates here. So field work began yesterday for all sample numbers in both Kansas and Nebraska. So you can get your A's in. We've got quite a few in already, which is great. And your B forms, I pulled data this morning. We did have some B forms filled out already too. So that's awesome. Field work will end June 1. And on June 2, you can still enter CAPI. And then after that, it's going to close up so we can run our summaries. And then for July, June 24 will be when that field work begins. And then again, it'll be anything that is uncompleted and unharvested, and then July 1 and July 2. So then a final reminder for those gleanings, we want those submitted to the national lab within 3 days of harvest. So that's all I have. Good luck. If you have any questions, be sure to let us know. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. This is Randy Ingerson here. I'm filling in for Kenneth Rivera. He's going to be on leave. Most of the ARMS 1 integrated screening, I guess we're calling it integrated screening survey this year, also known as ARMS 1 other years. Project code's 905. Our contact information's there. But just remember, Ken's going to be gone. So if you have a question, you'll have to get a hold of me. Next slide. Okay. The integrated screening survey will be conducted from May to July 2022. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. There's been some sample issues and other delays that's pushing this back a little bit. But the primary purpose of this, the screen operations for ARMS phases 2 and 3. Operations in business at any time during 2022 with commodities of interest will be eligible for ARMS 2 and ARMS 3. ARMS targets different agricultural commodities every year on a rotational basis. This year we have the 3 wheats, winter, durum, spring, and potatoes. Next slide. And there's just a little chart there to say what's in for each state. So Kansas will be asking about winter wheat, Nebraska, winter wheat, North Dakota, durum wheat, spring wheat, potatoes, and South Dakota will be winter wheat and spring wheat. Okay. The target is now reporting to be a landlord only. These are some special situations, some data collection issues to watch out for. If you have a landlord, everything's all rented out, you code it as out of business, leave an explanation in the comments. Some typical cropland error type things you'll see is if cropland acres reported larger than the sum of the planted acre crops are greater than cropland, but your instrument flag and error, things like that, things to watch out for. Next slide. Here's where I want to talk a little bit. So right now, we said the data collection window for this was starting in May. but you can see here the mail date is June 8. There's been some OMB approval issues for this survey, and I talked to the contact in headquarters, and the OMB approvals, they're expecting it to happen June 1 or June 2, somewhere in there. So you'll have some of these integrated screenings overlapped with some of your other surveys and stuff. So as of now, some of these dates may change. We will push out your integrated screening surveys to your iPads here in the next few days, but you will not be able to access them on your iPad until June 6th at this point. And so we'll keep that in mind. Also with this, the reason they call it integrated screening survey this year is because there's a vegetable section on there, and we didn't think the vegetable questions were going to get routed since they're not a target commodity for any of the states in the NPR region. So if you had a chance to look at the integrated survey questionnaire that's out on your NASDA website, you will notice there's a vegetable section there where it asks if the producer raised any vegetables. And what we want to do there, almost all we're going to be 9 because we want to exclude home gardens. Okay, so you should see very few of these that answer yes, that they raised vegetables, to sell at farmers markets, what have you. But we do need you to fill out that section. And like I say, almost everyone's going to say they didn't have any because we want to exclude home gardens. So that's important to exclude home gardens. So that vegetable section will get routed on your iPads. And if they do have some vegetables, like maybe they planted some sweet corn to sell to farmers markets or whatever, you simply record the total acres planted to vegetables, and then you itemize it out by the type of vegetable to the nearest 10th acre. Okay, so keep that in mind. We don't know about call-outs yet because the dates are uncertain, but the data collection period will end July 12th. That hasn't changed. So you'd have to have all your data entered in your iPads by 11 p.m. Central on the 12th. So thank you.
All right. Hey, everybody. It's time to talk about area and ACEs again. I'm sure you're sick of seeing us if you went to your area workshops and the office hours yesterday, but just a few things. You can see the project codes, 124 for area and 655 for ACEs there. And our mug shots for Justin and I. If you have any questions, give us a call, shoot us an email. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. And if you're confused, Justin is the one on the right side of his picture there. I know it can be a little confusing there, but that's it for this slide. So this year, kind of what's new and what we're focusing on, we do have some, personal interviews. We want to focus on those crops APS matches to kind of get, 2 completes with 1 interview. And then if you have some more personal interviews on your second drive-by, new operators and segments that don't have any positive responses is where to kind of focus your efforts there. We also want to remind everybody, enter your time daily as much as you can, and set aside some time to enter your data in CAPI as soon as you can, nightly or every other night, just as soon as you can, most days. Next slide. This is just some benchmarks. The first one for area is next Wednesday on June 1st. We want at least 1 ag tract questionnaire submitted. And then the Wednesday after that, on June 8th, if we could have 50%, so half of it submitted. And then Sunday, June 12th is our last day to submit area. So make sure you get those in on that Sunday. And then the ACEs benchmarks are there as well. Those all start after area. So if you're needing to prioritize area for these next 2 weeks, and then we can start working on the ACEs afterwards. The tier 2 versus tier 3 data collection. If you have one of those tier 2 ones, there's not a lot of them, but that should say that on the front page of the tract questionnaire and the label. You can collect those tier 2 ones now, and then those tier 3 you can start on May 28th. And no matter what, both of them, you need it submitted on June 12th. So the end date is the same no matter what the tier is. So just kind of touching again on our segment observation and data collection plan. It's still kind of a 2 drive-by plan. Your first drive-by, observe the segments, take any notes that you need. If you needed to complete the section D by estimate, if you could take all of those notes on the first one if possible and kind of familiarize yourself. And then if you can focus on personal interviewing those crops APS matches when you drive by the first time. And then after you observe, try to call everybody still. Phoning is still an important part of our plan. So try to call everybody, get a hold of who you can. And we put some information out there about if they were a good response over the phone last year so that you know, hey, maybe this person is picked up on the phone last year. Maybe I can get them again that way this year. If you call everybody and then you still need to go observe for refusals or whatever, and you're hoping maybe they have some more planted or stuff comes up, you can see it towards the end of the survey. That second observation towards the end, we want to, still try to interview those crops APS matches, but also those new operators or segments where you haven't got any good responses yet. Is where to kind of focus your personal interview time and effort there. Once again, try to plan your route as efficiently as possible when you're doing this. Next slide. And here's just some reminders. We do need that section D for all tracks, even if they're refusal or inaccessible. We need an estimate of section D, and leave notes as much as you can. If you complete it by observation, what did you see? What's it look like? So, as I said earlier, set aside time to enter that data in CAPI and set aside time to enter time in your timesheet so that we can, let supervisors know how we're doing on that timesheet and that budget. Review your questionnaire, make sure that all your acres are accounted for. And check your RADA when the segment is complete. If there's something funny going on or unusual, write us a note. If you investigated and you think maybe it looks a little weird, we can always read a note, and we appreciate that. So next slide. Some common section D errors. If you do have waste acres in the tract, don't forget to mark those down and record them. We don't need to, draw off separate waste fields anymore. But we do still want those noted. If they have, 160 acre field, but realistically, 20 of those never get planted. It's just not, not possible. We do want a note on that, and, those acres recorded in waste if they're not planted acres. We don't want that, all of it recorded and planted or what have you. If you have other crops, type it in a comment, let us know what those are, and make sure your acres do add up. There's no warning in CAPI if they don't, but if you are looking at it as you enter and they don't add up, figure out what's going on and find where those acres are. When in doubt, write it out. We always appreciate notes. And if something is a little unusual, definitely let us know, because when we see it in the office, we don't know the context behind what they were telling you in the interview. So we always appreciate notes. And then never turn in a blank section D. So those all need estimated. On other sections, just some common errors to watch out for. If there's nothing recorded for stocks when the crop stocks box is checked, if you see an elevator and they don't tell you anything, that's a good thing to put in a comment. Section M has the 2 questions. Question 1 asks the total value of acres on the whole farm. Question 2 asks the value per acre on just the tract in the segment. So make sure you keep those two separate and know what you're asking if they are giving you some information, how to record that. So just a reminder of those office hours. If you went to the ones yesterday, there were some great questions. We really appreciated it. And we did record that. We'll be getting that out as soon as possible if you missed it. And then the next one is on Wednesday, June 1st at 9 and 7 Central Time. They are optional, but if you have a question, there's a good chance somebody else has one. And sometimes you can go hear a question and realize, hey, I didn't know I had that question, but now that I've heard it asked and answered, I kind of want to, I had that question too. So they're good resources, and we hope that you gain some benefit out of them. Next slide. And this is just the data collection and due dates for area that ends on the 12th. And I just want to say, thank you for all of the work that you're going to be doing and that you have been doing for us. We really appreciate it. And you guys do make a difference for U.S. agriculture out there. So thank you. And that's all I had for area.
Hello, everybody. My name is Leslie Rangel. I am one of the program managers for the Crops APS survey, along with Devin Van Hoff. Our contact information is on the screen. If you have any questions or have any issues, feel free to reach out to us. The project code for this survey is 123. So I just want to start off by talking about previously reported data, or PRD. For the June Crops APS survey, we will have some records, about 2,500 records in the Northern Plains. Will have previously reported data in at least one question. And really, this data is just based on availability. So some records might have a lot of previously reported data, while others might not have any. Regardless, you still need to ask all the questions. And when you see a question with data, please ask it in the sense of last time we recorded rather than last time you reported. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. So here's an example of a question that would have this PRD. So last time we recorded that this operation had 40 acres rented or leased from others. Is this information still correct? So if the respondent was to say yes, then you as the enumerator would accept the pre-filled information as the current answer, and you just move on to the next question. But if the respondent was to say no, then you would ask the standard question as it's worded in CAPI, and then you would change the pre-filled answer to reflect what they actually reported to you at that time. So just kind of keep this in mind, the back, just as you're asking some of these questions. I don't think you'll really encounter a whole lot of these, but in case that you do, we have the information provided. You can go on to the next slide. Okay. And this is one item that will show up on almost every, I think every screen has it. It's an introductory statement explaining the pre-filled information that appears on CAPI. So you can go ahead and read that, but it's just essentially saying there's pre-filled information. If a respondent reports online, they will also see a similar statement. And if there is previously reported data on the record that you're collecting data on, you may notice that there's like these little check marks in the sections. So just kind of be aware of that if there is PRD, there will be some checked sections on the report. So next slide. So if an operation is out of business, their refusal or an inaccessible record, and they have this previously reported data in them, you do not have to worry about removing that data from CAPI. You can just submit as you usually would. And there is more information out, as always, like on the NASDA website, that does cover a little bit more of this previously reported data. But your interviewer's manual, I think, is going to be the best guide for some of this, because there is a chapter that kind of talks a little bit more about this information. So if you have other questions or want more information, you can always refer to the NASDA website or your interviewer's manual. Next slide. Okay. And now I'm going to shift a little bit gears, and I want to talk more of just like the meat of the survey. And we'll start off by talking about acres that are left to be planted for all purposes. This question does come up in June. We can put a don't know or refusal in these questions. So, if you encounter an operator that times are uncertain for a lot of people right now. And if they just don't know, put that they don't know. And if you have any comments, as always, feel free to put them in there. We do appreciate those. This question, though, is not asked for every single crop. It does vary by state. So just kind of be mindful of that. We do have an additional question for soybeans. It's the acres planted following another harvested crop. So essentially it's just the double cropping question. I believe it just shows up right after in the same set of questions for soybeans. And so for cropland, we just want you to be aware that or be mindful of the sum of the crops that they report are planted are reasonable with the cropland. If they have any double cropping, any summer fallow, CRP, really any strange situation that would make it so that the planted acres are more than the cropland, please provide those in the comments. And when you're adding comments, if it's not an item specific, so if it's not directly related to corn or wherever, just make sure you provide those in the details. So for example, if it's something related to soybean, say, soybean acres, and then write your comment. So that way we know which crop you're specifically talking about. And I feel like we're always saying, hey, provide notes, but they really do help us in the office just to understand what's going on, what was happening during the conversation, or if, really for any situation. So if there's unusual abandonment acres, I feel like the weather has been pretty crazy throughout our region. So just make sure to provide those notes. And here I'm just continuing with some reminders for hay acres that are harvested. Include those pasture acres that are cut for hay in the survey. For crops stored, please include them regardless of ownership if it's stored on this farm. And you want to include them if they're stored in temporary or permanent facilities. And we do want to exclude grains that are stored in off-farm facilities and any new crop from the 2022 harvest. For out of business records, one of the things I wanted to just really bring up to you all is if an operation is reporting that they are out of business, we really want to probe and provide any notes for any of these other items. So if they have any livestock, horses, cattle, sometimes that might be the reason why we can't put them out of business. Sometimes it might be for CRP or any grain storage. We want to make sure that if we put them out of business, that we're not losing out on, possible cattle, possible CRP acres, because those still have, they're ag, and we would still consider them in business if they had any of that. One of the other things I did want to reiterate is for you all to verify you have the correct target operator. And that mainly just comes from, because I know you may be talking to, a spouse or a brother or really anybody, and they might be the one giving you information, which is totally fine. It's just we ran into some situations where specifically most recently, we were putting an operator out of business. The record had came in as out of business, but long story short, we had the wrong person that was out of business. It was actually like they had the same name. And so with all of that, we just want to make sure that the person that we're actually putting out of business, putting out deceased, that they are the actual correct person. So that's just one thing to just make sure you have the correct target operator. And now I want to touch a little bit on our prevent plant acreage. And with prevent plant acreage, that is just essentially the failure to plant the originally intended crop. And these prevent plant acreages can really come from really anything that we're seeing in our region right now. It's too wet. Conditions are just not ideal for planting. But with these prevent plant acreages, we do not want to include them in the crop section. And there is a note in CAPI about prevented planting acreages, and I've included the screenshot on the slide. So that's just a kind of reminder for you all do not include these prevent plant acreages. However, if the operator is still intending to plant either that crop or a different crop, we do still want to account for that. So, for example, if he or she is saying that conditions are not ideal, they can't go in and plant corn. They're prevent plant acreages. We don't include it in the crop section. But if they're saying, well, if X, Y, and Z happens, and blah blah blah, and they say we might still try to do it. Okay, so if their intention is still to plant it, we would still count those acres in the crop section. If they're going to be planting a cover crop instead on there, we would need to put those acres, like if it's rye or some oats, we would need to count those acres. And I do have a crop progress informational slide here. Matt did go over more in-depth information, and so I won't go into too much, but we did provide on the PowerPoint that is on the NASDA website. There are some links on there that will directly take you to the state crop progress page. And there's a screenshot showing what the page looks like. It's a calendar, and we've got all the dates on there for the reports that recently came out. So you can refer to those as you would need to during the season, or really if you're just curious as to what the crops are doing. And just really overall, North Dakota is definitely a lot behind actually, but there are plenty of other crops. I only highlighted corn and soybeans. The graphic here does show the 5-year average planted progress and how that really compares to what we're seeing now. There's different, like I said, there's various crops, but I really only highlighted corn and soybeans here. So next slide. And lastly, I just have some data collection and due dates. The mail date for this survey was last week, May 19th, and we are starting to get some phone calls and reports are starting to come in. Data collection for you all does begin on May 28th, that is on Saturday. Callouts are June 9th, and data collection ends on June 14th with happy closing at 11 p.m. Central. And the release will be in the crop production annual summary and quarterly grain stocks reports on June 30th at 11 a.m. Central time. And that is all I have for you, and turn it over to the next presenter.
Hello, this is Scene Fate, program manager for June Hogs, other quarters of hogs too. Project code is 162. Like every other quarter, for the most part, we're going after total inventory of owned hogs and pigs. But this quarter on June 1st, so we're getting the breeding herd number, market hogs, and we'll publish numbers for those, as well as farrowings and pig crops, and death and contract hogs if they're a contractor or a contractee. Nothing's really changed on the hogs here. Just something to point out. This is usually about the only thing we may run into for issues, besides maybe reporting hogs that somebody doesn't own or whatnot. But make sure the pig crop owned is not double counted in the pig crop, the sold and slaughtered. So you can see here in the example of May, they got 35 sows, and the May they've got 350 little piggies, and none that have been sold or slaughtered. And it looks like April they're starting to sell some of those pigs. But if you look, those two lines there, like let's just take April for example, the 100 and the 250. Those added up divided by your April sows should give you that pigs per litter, which varies, but 9 to 14, or sometimes less, sometimes more, but somewhere around there. I think last quarter there's, I don't know if there's 11.4 or something like that for the average of. But anyhow, just make sure those pigs are owned, and then also accounted for in the market hogs if they still have those on hand. March 1st, last time we did the report, you can see where the on the right side, we'll start with where the U.S. Quarterly hogs and pigs were. Been down from the previous couple of years, but nowhere near where we were 8 years ago in 2014. And then on the left side, you can see for March, South Dakota had 2 million hogs, which was I believe a record high. Yep, that's what the pound sign is. And Nebraska was at 3.6 million, and Kansas at 1.8 million, which was down, quite a bit at down 7%. So I guess in June we'll see where those numbers go, and just what's going on in the hog industry. Data collection and due dates. The mail date was the 23rd. You can start here right after Memorial Day on May 30th. Call outs, we may or may not have any of those, but your NASDAQ coordinator will let you know on those on June 10th. And data collection ends, I believe, a day after APS. So you do have an extra day to get those in. Please don't wait till the 15th to enter them. I know everybody's busy with area and list, but if you do have some hogs that you get done early, please find a little time to get those in, so we're not crunched at the end, because we do have some work to do after everything comes in before headquarters gets a hold of it, and when they get a hold of it, they've got some time. But the release is at the end of the month, June 29th. So just make sure we get those hogs in as soon as we can when you do get the report from them. So overall, everybody does a good job on hogs. I appreciate it. If you have anything, let us know. We sure let you know if we find anything or on a goofy hog one. But keep up the good work on those. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ben Blumendahl. I'm the program manager for the Conservation Practice Adoption and Motivation Survey, or CPAMS, and the project code is 943. Next slide. The CPAMS survey is funded by USDA NRCS and will measure why operations choose to participate in NRCS conservation programs and better understand participation by farmers. In 2021, Nebraska participated in a pilot study, and for 2022, it's been extended nationwide. And there's two versions: the crop practices and confined livestock. Training packets will be sent after June area, and materials will also be posted on the NASDA NPR website. Next slide. Respondents were sent a pre-survey letter on May 9th, and then on May 30th, they got a letter with a questionnaire, and then data collection will begin on June 13th, and they'll also get a second questionnaire on July 11th, as well as a postcard reminder on August 1st, and then data collection will end on August 12th, and all data must be entered into CAPI by 11 p.m. Central Time, and then a final report will be published on September 15th.
Hello, everybody. My name is Quentin Warren, and we'll be covering the July cattle report. And for cattle, we each state has its own stat that's really in charge. So those are the people you should talk to first if you have a question. So in South Dakota, it's Amy. In Nebraska, it's Aaron. For me, it's Kansas. And then for North Dakota, it'd be Ken Smith. But again, he'll be on out of the office during July. So go ahead and call me if you have a question with North Dakota. Next slide. So the cattle release in July is a U.S. release only. There are no state estimates, and so we just have a national release. Next slide. So we're going to go ahead and go over the questionnaire, just a quick overview. So section 1 is where we're collecting the cattle. We want the cattle and calves on total acres operated. Unless it's on AUM, then the land should be reported by the cattle owner, not the landowner. The next section is we break it up into items or categories. And the first question is question 2, which is breaking out cows. So we break out the cows by beef cows and by dairy cows. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And so then we, after we get the other items, and we go on and we want to collect the calf crop in July. So do not include calves purchased. We're only asking about calves that were born during the year 2022. And total calves born should be about equal to total beef cows or the milk cows that have calved on page 4. Next slide. The next thing is we also want to know about their death loss. So again, it's just the last 6 months death loss, the 2022 death loss. And if you have any calves that died that are on the previous section, those need to be reported in this section also under cattle weighing 500 pounds or less. So we do break it up into two parts. Also, we do have cattle on feed. I'm sorry, go ahead, go to the next slide. Yeah. So we asked them cattle on feed. And so this is cattle that are going to go directly to slaughter market. We don't want to include any cows and bulls, just steers and heifers, and then any calves that are under 500 pounds that are on feed or going to be on feed. You know, this is going to be your Holstein steers basically there. Also, again, be sure that these steers and heifers are included in page 4, where we have or section 1, where we have each item broken out. Next page, slide. So data collection starts, the mail date is June 23rd. We're going to start collecting on June 30th. They should be on your iPad 3 to 5 days before the 1st. If we do call outs, those will be on July 8th. The data collection ends July 14th, and the release is July 22nd. And now we're just going to briefly cover the monthly cattle on feed survey. And so the monthly cattle on feed is done in just the 3 states in the region. So we're done in South Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas. And again, Aaron does Nebraska, and Amy does South Dakota, and I do Kansas. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So for cattle on feed, it's steers and heifers that will go directly to slaughter market and grade select or better. The one thing we want to do is we don't want to include cows and bulls. And this is a measure of the number of cattle on feed for all known feedlots with capacity of 1,000 or more head. So this survey is not for small feedlots, it's for the bigger ones. And we want to exclude backgrounders. Next slide. And again, for cattle on feed, it typically mails out 3 to 5 days before the 1st of the month. For this month, data collection begins on May 31st. We don't normally do call outs for cattle on feed. And for the month of June, data collection ends on June 20th, and the release will be on June 24th.
This is Brian Hellman. I'm the project manager for the milk production survey, which is done every quarter. Next slide. I'm just going to be covering the timeline. We do the specific training for the January survey. We'll be mailing out the survey on the 22nd. The data collection period will open June 6th for the matches and June 30th for the general sample, the non-matches. Any possible call-outs will be on July 7th. Data entry and CAPI to be completed by July 13th. And the milk production report comes out on the 21st of July.
My name's Paul Sieper, and Christina Dowd couldn't be with us today. She's the program manager for the July Colony Loss Survey. The project code for July Colony Loss Survey is 115. So a survey update about this. July Colony Loss will also have PRD in CAPI and online reporting for reporters. So PRD is that previously reported data. Just like what Leslie said in APS, ask questions like the last time we recorded this, is that still correct? And avoid saying last time you reported, because a partner could have reported it, a spouse could have reported it. It's not always the operator reporting to us. Make sure you say, you may notice that some of the questions on the survey may be pre-filled with information we have from the previous survey for this operation. We hope this information helps you complete the survey. So here's an example. We will be using the previous quarter's ending colonies. So in this example, question number 2, that 2,000 colonies came from the April colony loss, and it will become the July beginning colonies on April 1st. So just this is an example. We're using the previous quarter's ending colonies to pre-fill the current quarter's beginning colonies. Next slide. Some data collection and due dates. It's getting mailed on June 22nd. Data collection begins June 30th with a possible call out on June 8th, and data collection ends on July 17th. and that has to be entered by 11 p.m. Central Time. And the honeybee colonies report is published on August 2nd at 2 p.m. August 1st at 2 p.m.
Good morning. Again, Ben Blumendahl talking about NOM's Bison. Project code is 930. And we just wanted to update you guys. This is a survey that will be going on, but it won't be affecting very large number of enumerators. It's a study funded by USDA APHIS to study bison health and health management practices. The last bison survey was in 2014, and the 2022 bison study will take place July through August. The DCCs will handle majority of the phone follow-up, and local data collection will just be limited to operations that have existing contact agreements. The mail date is June 21st. Data collection begins August 1st. There's no call outs planned, and data collection will end August 19th with all data entered in CAPI by 11 p.m. Central Time. Thank you.
My name is Paul Sieper again. I'm going to go over who's the target for our list-based surveys. I haven't did this one in about 2 years, and we've hired many new enumerators in a couple states. So I just wanted to go over who the target is on your CAPI assignment listing. So NASS uses a term called operator dominant. It's a concept that we use for list frame maintenance. And the operator is identified as the sampling unit, and the person deemed the operator of a farm or a ranch is known as the target name. However, there are some exceptions where the operator will not be the target name, but instead the operation name will be the target sample. So here is an example of your CAPI assignment listing. So where is the operation and operator name listed on your CAPI assignment? It's under the column of name. And in this example, Doe Farms Incorporated is the operation name, which is listed on the top, and the operator is listed on the bottom, and that is John Doe. Next, you're going to pay attention to the column OpDom. In the example to the right, you can see that there are 5 records, and they each almost have a different OpDom status. We have an OpDom 99, a 0, a 45, a 0 manager, and then an 85. So OpDom stands for the operator dominant. An OpDom 0 can be an individual operator, or it could be a partnership. So the target name would be the operator. An OpDom 8545 is the target name is the person, but they have multiple operations. So you have to pay attention to the operation name. So it's really both. And then the OpDom 99 is a managed operation where the target name is the operation name. So the target is the operation name. Next. An OpDom 0 operation, it can be an individual operation or a partnership operation. The target name is the operator listed. This target needs to report for all other operations that he or she is the target for, and they make the day-to-day decisions. If it's a 0 with a manager in the OpDom column, the decisions are made by a hired manager, and the target is both the operation name and the operator. OpDom 8545s, this is the target is the person's name, the operator, and he has multiple operations. The 85 operation is the primary operation, while the 45 is the secondary or remaining operations. In this example, the target operator is Jim Nelson, and his 85 operation is Sunny Farms, while his secondary or 45 operation is called Three Little Pigs. So we want to make sure that the data for Sunny Farms goes on the 85 and the Three Little Pigs data goes on the 45. Do your best to not get those two switched up, because we have found in the past that sometimes the data gets put on the wrong point. So make sure you understand that the 85 is for Sunny Farms and the 45 is for Three Little Pigs. If you get the data wrong on both of those operations, please let the office know so we can correct the data in our systems. Next. 99 operations, the operation name is the target. These are considered special handling because of the data collection complexities. The person listed can be either the manager of the operation. The person listed could also be the accountant that is not making the day-to-day decisions. And sometimes these operations require multiple different individuals to be contacted for various surveys, and it could just be the point of contact to get the data. So examples like these would be multi-state corporations, university farms, large livestock operations, and Hutterite colonies. So if you encounter, when you are talking to these farmers, specifically an OPDOM 0, and they tell you they have a new additional operation, this is when you would ask in the conclusion section, specifically like APS, that he informs us he's making day-to-day decisions for another farm. And we ask him if this new additional business was in operation before June 1st of 2022. So next slide. This is a screen capture of CAPI on this conclusion section. We'd want you to fill out this section very completely. We need a good operation name, this new operation name. We need an address, we need a phone number, and we just need everything to be complete. Potentially, if there's any other people involved with making decisions for this operation, because we're going to check to see if this operation already exists on our list frame. The data for this new operation would go into the CAPI comments. So, because you're not going to have a whole new CAPI screen to put the data in, you would only put, so this is for newly discovered operations, you're going to put it into the CAPI comments. So for the example previously, I put Green Acres Incorporated is a corporation with his brother, Oliver Douglas. The operation has 320 acres of cropland with 160 acres of corn and 160 acres of soybeans, and they have no on-farm grain storage, and you would save that. Just remember for these newly discovered operations to explain the situation in the CAPI comments, whether it's a crop farm, livestock farm, CRP, it's a trust, a corporation, an LLC. Make sure you're telling us any partners associated with these new operations so we can do any overlapping to see if they're already on our list frame. And all that survey data needs to be in the CAPI comment. If it's an 8545, there's no reason to enter that information into comments. This is only for newly discovered operations. And we only want operations that are in business, and we don't want any landlord situations where they own land and they're renting it out. We just want in business operations. If you encounter a farmer that has an 8545 and he no longer wants to report his operation separately and he wants to combine it into one report, they can do that because we have a respondent burden statement. They can tell us whether they want to have their operations separate or combined into one. However, if they do want to report everything together as one, it has to be for all NASS surveys. It can't just be for this survey. It has to be for all our surveys. So, and this is particularly for like the ARM surveys. So, and any other monthly, all our surveys together. So if you're questioning it, please call me in the office and we can definitely go over it. If this happens, if there is an 8545 and they don't want to report it as two or three separate operations, please communicate back to the office in CAPI comments about how you handled these records and what's going on with the data, if you're not going to keep it the same. And that's all I had.
All right, thanks, Paul. Okay, moving on to the last third of the subject that we're going to go through is dealing with NASDA and NASDA updates. Here's a mugshot of everybody. Len Gentrip's in Lincoln. He's our group leader. Kara's our NASDA coordinator in North Dakota. I'm Travis in South Dakota. Andrew's in Nebraska. And Lynn's in Kansas until July 1st. As you'll see off to the left here, Michael will be the NASDA coordinator in Kansas starting July 1st. Some of the things I want to talk a little bit about, there's a CAPI dashboard icon on your iPad if you're on the home screen. If you click on it, it has a whole bunch of links to other websites dealing with NASDA, ISOL, NASS, or some training. We always recommend that you go out there and look periodically, especially if CAPI is not working for you. There's a lot of information out there, daily or announcements. There's also a status to tell you if CAPI is up or down, or if it's got a green check running solid. During this busy time of the year, we highly recommend if you do have issues, go there first just to see if something's already been reported. When you're on the CAPI dashboard, this is something that I'd like to focus in on a little bit. There'll be a little ticker tape that runs across the top. It'll say news and announcements below or some other information. The main thing I was talking about, if you're having issues getting into CAPI, look at this little status right here. It says system status. Green check means all systems are go. Sometimes you might have, I think it's like a triangle or a yellow warning sign. So please check there. The other things is, troubleshooting wise, we always call it the 3-step plan. If sometimes you're unable to get into CAPI 2 and you go out there and you see that all systems are a go, this is out on the CAPI. If you cruise down a little bit, it's a common thing. We do these 3 little steps, and for the most part, that gets you right back into CAPI. Also, I kind of want to point out here too, in the news and announcements, on May 18th, they pushed out a new CAPI version. And the current version is out there, and I'll show it on the next slide. It's essentially, here's the year, the next digit is the month, and the next digits are the dates that it was pushed. So 2022, May, and on the 18th it was pushed. So like the CAPI versions, because they've been doing some pushes, this is the second year we're doing June area in CAPI. First time for ACES because we haven't done ACES in 5 years. So there's been a lot of updates to accommodate all the different, if you want to say all the different matrix, little symbols or programs going on behind the scenes, a lot of databases and stuff. So in the past couple months, we've had a lot of updates to the CAPI and CAPI training. Again, after this meeting, when you go into CAPI next time, just kind of make sure you look and see it does say version, May 18th. If you're not sure what version it currently is, go out to the CAPI dashboard and it'll actually tell you what the latest version you should find out there. If you don't have the correct version, it's not a problem. There are instructions on that site to kind of walk you through the different steps of doing it. If you're having any issues, by all means, reach out to your supervisor or your NASDAQ coordinator. When you're logged into CAPI, towards the upper right-hand corner right here by where you exit, you'll see this version right here. In this case, it's v22.05.18. The dash is 002 is just mostly an indicator. I've seen like negative 001, 002, and 003. That's what you just got to look for when you're logging into CAPI. Now, these sometimes you might call them like 4 discs on top, or some people call them the hamburger. Like when you collect survey data and you put it into CAPI, you'll see this will have a number here too. As the data gets loaded from your CAPI up to the cloud, we call it, this number will start ticking down. So when you see no numbers here, that means whatever information you've had on your iPad has safely uploaded to the cloud, if you shall say, or the servers. Once your assignments are loaded into CAPI, CAPI will work and route questions even if you're out of cell service. So every morning when you log into CAPI, it downloads all your assignments. Then technically you can be out in the middle of nowhere with no cell phone reception and CAPI will function. Like I kind of pointed out too, the hamburger, the 4 discs on top of each other, those numbers will start incrementing upwards until you get to the hilltop where you get connection again, and then those will start uploading to the cloud. So it's a good thing, make sure you've got a good battery life. Make sure you don't shut down the iPad or close out until all those 4 discs show no values on there. We highly recommend logging out of CAPI each and every night after all the data has been sent to the cloud, for the simple reason that when you refresh or log back in, it brings in your new listings in. It could be like for call outs or maybe another project. Also, if a respondent was to have done it online or mailed it back, at least you'll get the latest and greatest check-in status, because you might not have to call that person now because they completed it via mail or online. If you're collecting reports on paper first, we kind of talked about this. Enter it into CAPI as soon as possible. June and July has a heavy workload. You got everything organized in your plan of attack. There's a lot of surveys that overlap. A person might be in multiple surveys, especially when it comes overlapping with June area. We always recommend the best practice is to put these reports into CAPI by end of day. This is a good indicator to show progress to your supervisors, to the NASDAQ coordinators, and also to the staff in Lincoln, without having to verbally communicate, hey, how's things are going. We kind of talk, we can't stress this enough. Start as soon as you can. Please don't wait. Less stress at the end to complete the workload, gives you a little more breathing room towards the end, so you're not scrambling as much. Also gives time for follow-up questions if needed. And the other one of the things that's kind of important that's happened at times, maybe someone has an emergency and they're unable to finish their work. If you've started early, it gives you a better position to lend a helping hand, and likewise the other way around. In CAPI itself, please record all call attempts. We talked about once you get a record completed, you get it submitted. It shows to your supervisors and everybody else that you're making progress, but also the supervisors can go look to see if you're making any attempts on people. Like in this situation right here on CAPI, under the INF column, like information column, you'll see that there's an indicator of a little red box with a 2 in there. That means there's 2 attempts recorded so far. If you were to click on this icon, the telephone icon, it's going to bring up the information about the operator, and also all the different call attempts. You can kind of see I put some in there for name, just playing around. You can, if you do all your information on paper, you can always go back in there. These cells are editable, so you can put in like yesterday's date and yesterday's time if need be with your notes. It's a good, that way supervisors can also see that. You can also see it, or if something was to happen, at least someone who's helping out could see your track history as well. NASDA online calendar, we talked a lot of dates. We're really heavily date driven. So continue to visit the NASDA calendar for any updated dates. Your CAPI also has dates as to when you can start and when you can stop. When you're on the NASDA site, you go to our regional center, and at the very end, we'll talk about how to get to the Northern Plains part. There is a link down there under news and events called Enumerator Calendar. Here's just a quick snapshot of how busy June is looking like. So these RCC meetings are on there that we're in right now. We had those optional June area ones. These are also posted, as well as the start dates and end dates and when calls are coming, and future training schools when we get all that stuff from headquarters. Downloading the books on the iPad. In May, you guys all received, I have an example here for the June Ag Survey Interviewers Manual, which has several pages on it. But if you choose, or even like these PowerPoints that you see, you can download them onto your iPad. So if you find the document you like, that you want, in this case, I was doing the interviewer's manual just because I'd like to be able to search versus thumb through all the pages. You click up here, it has this little share button. So you click on that, and then it'll give you these options, whether you mail, but we want to go for the books. So when you click on books, it's going to automatically download it into a books icon that's on your iPad already. iSolve tips. This is what we use to put our daily timesheets in. Please complete and enter those on a daily basis. Like, Matt kind of talked about, supervisors are going to give a daily report as to where our budget is. Well, the government, once a budget goes over, we can't ask for more money. We got to stay under or right on the penny for the budget. So supervisors and us, we're monitoring that too. So when you put your timesheet in daily, we can get those more accurate numbers, more data, so we know when we have to put on the halt and not go out in personal interviews anymore when we hit that 75% for the June area and APS. When the time period comes, every 2 weeks we go through this. The enumerator will verify their timesheet the Saturday, the last day of the pay period, by midnight. Supervisors have until Monday at 10 a.m. to verify it, make sure everything looks good. And then the NASDA coordinators by noon on Monday, making sure that there's no error issues or any of that kind of stuff. Reimbursement receipts. This doesn't happen a lot. This is mostly like if we have postage or for mailing stuff, and you can get reimbursed for it. The main thing is you put it in the iSolve so you can get paid for it. But we need to have a receipt. NASDA coordinators need to have a receipt for those. So if you on the receipt itself, if you write your name and enumerator ID, the project code that you put in for iSolve, and a description of the expense. The best way is to email or text that image of the receipt because it's quick, or if you want to put it in the mail, you sure can. But send it timely. The main reason why we have these receipts is that when we do go through an audit for all these miscellaneous expenses, we can have the receipts to go, yep, we have justification for all these additional reimbursements that you all have been claiming. Passcode to unlock the iPad. Just kind of keep in mind, every 90 days, you'll have to be prompted to change your passcode to get into the iPad. We do recommend, even like June and July is going to be busy for you, so you always will be in it. But if there's some downtime, we do recommend you logging into it a few days prior before a survey starts, just to make sure you get all the updates properly. You can get into the iPad and all that good stuff. It does, if you forget your password, it does take up to a couple of days to get a new password for you, to be able to get rocking and rolling. Just a friendly reminder, develop a plan of attack. Can't say it enough, getting yourself organized and how you're going to do this quick 2-week window on the June surveys. Start as soon as possible based on the collection times allows. Communicate with your supervisor, as to how progress was going and stuff like that. Nobody likes surprises at the very end. If something goes wrong and we could justify or fixed it all right away in the beginning and got you started on the right foot. Please review your work. You're putting everything on paper, and then you put potentially on, like June area, for example, you're probably doing a lot of it on paper, and then you're going into the iPad and you're putting the information into CAPI. Just make sure that you're getting all that information put in there. Make sure you don't have an extra 0 or short of 0 on some things. And whatever notes you had on the questionnaire itself, make sure you get those into the CAPI side too, so we can see them down in Lincoln. Once you get stuff in, make sure you submit everything promptly, meet the due dates, making sure you enter your time in iSolve regularly. And of course, by all means, staying safe when you're driving. Please don't get too distracted by trying to figure out what's out in the field. If you need to pull off to the side of the road to get a better view, we highly recommend it. Watch out, plantings behind, so the equipment's running all over the place. So just be safe, please. When you have questions, kind of the order we'd like, call your supervisor, call other enumerators, call your NASDAQ coordinator, or call the regional office, help get you answered and get you going. Okay, so now we're getting into the questions. What we'll probably, like I said, we're recording here, so we'll have you raise your hands and we'll address you at that time. When we call your name, go ahead and unmute and you can speak, and then when you're done, go ahead and lower your hand. We do have the chat feature open, but like I said, I was trying to do this all across verbally so we can record it for those that are unable to attend. So I'm going to stop sharing right now, and then we can go into questions and answers. I see Gintrip's got his hand up.
Good morning, everyone. I was monitoring the chat, and so we had that one question in the chat from Danielle. She asked, so we have to do the June APS on CAPI only, or will we get pre-filled surveys with names when we call? And Paul answered that we should do June APS in CAPI since there's a possibility of PRD. However, NASDAQ coordinators do provide some blank questionnaires of the list surveys, so that if you are having a lot of matches and you're doing things on paper with area, you can complete that list survey on paper. However, the PRD won't be on that blank paper form that you have. You just won't see it until you get into CAPI. So that's just something that enumerators will have to manage. And, if you're able to do the APS on CAPI, you'll see the PRD if it's there. But if you're on paper, you just won't see it until you enter it into CAPI. And that's just fine. And the other question from Danielle was, I have a mobile iron update on my iPad. Do I do the update? That one I'm a little confused on. Normally, it's just the iOS updates that show up on the iPad. So if there's something with mobile iron, if you want to reach out to your NASDAQ coordinator, we need to reach out to our IT contacts to explain that a little more. But if one of the other NASDAQ coordinators has experienced that, they can help us out as well.
I have, Lynn, this is Lynn in Kansas. I have had an enumerator, and I think it's happened on my iPad too, where the mobile iron icon has like a little red dot with a number in it, kind of like when the iOS update needs to be done. The mobile iron will have a little red dot, and all we've done is you click on the icon, it checks in, it says last time checked in or verified, with the current date and time. Close back out of it, and it's done. So if you just tap on the icon and then close back out of it, that's all it needs to do.
Okay, yeah, that's what it is. It's a little number on it, like it has an update.
Yeah, and there's not really anything you need to do but open it and close it. And that's been my experience.
Well, thank you. So I don't see any hands up. I don't know if we'll get great questions. I know, especially if you're new, man, it seemed like a lot of information. We did go long. I did kind of warn you, get all at an hour and a half. Mental note for next time. Generally, our Junes do run long. So we'll plan for that better. Again, like I said, a lot of stuff was laid out. This will be recorded and put out later. So if you want to go back and review it, you sure can. Sometimes watching it again you might pick up something that you forgot or missed or what have you. So I don't see any hands or anything in the comments. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to, someone asked, the paper surveys need to be sent back to Nebraska. Great question. If you have a way to dispose of them locally, like shred them or burn them in your burn pit, that's fine. June area, for sure, they sent out extra UPS labels. So I think there was supposed to be 3 UPS labels, 2 for the photo boxes and 1 for all the June area questionnaires, because those actually were pre-printed from the returning ones. So you can put all those. There was a white Tyvek they call it. Envelope is kind of like a big white envelope that's really rigid. So you can throw all that back in there and mail those back to Lincoln if need be. After the survey is completed, of course, just in case we have to call back. We don't need to have you go, well, I just burnt those at middle of the month, the first week in June, because I was done, because I cleared everything off my plate. By all means, please hang on to it until, late June, after the survey is done.
Can I add something, Travis?
Yeah.
Nobody in Lincoln's going to be going through those surveys. So whatever you have, important notes or address updates or whatever, needs to be entered into CAPI.
Thanks, Kara. Someone asked today's session, please charge it to project code 123 for the RCC. Like we talked about before, generally someone in our office edits these videos, compiles it, and that's what we watched tonight. And in the past quarters, we've also loaded them up to the NASDA website. So anybody who was not able to attend, or those who were, want to go back for a refresher, like I said, you sat through an hour and 20 minutes of recordings, and there's a lot of stuff in there. So I do appreciate your dedication to hang out with us tonight this long. So we're going to go into, I see Sheila, you have your hand up.
Yes. Are any of the surveys available for the farmers to do online?
Yeah, pretty much, except for June area is not available to do online. ACES is not available to do online. But everything else that we do, we give everybody any way we can get data, we're going to take it, right? We mail response, they can do it online, EDR, we call it. Or if they don't respond, then you all will go out after them or call them, or the data collection center as well.
Okay, thank you for verifying that.
Yeah, no problem. I'll say 99% of the time we have all modes of collection: mail, EDR, CAPI, and the call centers. Like June area is unique and ACES. Joanne, I see your hands up.
Yes. Hey, I don't know if it was just my screen or if it was everybody's. That's why I was going to come in here now, but my screen was blurry. I couldn't hardly read anything.
Okay.
Was anybody else's screen blurry?
I see a head nod from some.
Yes, mine was really bad.
Really, really bad. I mean, it hurt my eyes to keep looking at it.
Okay.
Is it where I am in my house? Sorry.
Mine was terrible. I couldn't read anything.
I couldn't either.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry that it happened. One of the things I think is, like yesterday during the June area optional stuff, I had some folks that were unable to log in, even with the passwords and stuff like that. And they actually had to, we tried to do different things. And the thing that fixed it was doing like the 3-step part, not really the 3-step part, the number 3 of the 3-step, if you have CAPI issues, where you hold the power button and the home button to force a hard reboot. Like for trainings and stuff like that, it might not be a bad thing. That way your iPad opens back up and it's got a fresh slate and running. Joanne, I know when you were talking, you were a little glitchy there too. So it could be some of where you're at. I do have an iPad off to the side for myself that I was using on Wi-Fi, and that was going good. I think it's just a spotty area. It could come really down to even like say if you're doing your home Wi-Fi, or maybe if you're doing cellular data where you're at from the tower or something of that nature too. So I apologize for the glitchiness on that.
Okay. I just, like I said, I didn't know if it was just mine or if everybody else was having problems with it also.
Oh yeah, I think it's. I bet you if we were to take a poll, it's probably a mixed bag. Some people had a rock star event. Some people fell into your lines. And there could have been some people that really struggled, to get in at times. Like I said, I don't know. I know we don't have it in the memo when we send out for these RCCs or even like a normal school. But just for me personally, I reboot. I hardly ever shut off my phone, but every once in a while I do it just because stuff doesn't cooperate very well.
Right. Yeah, I understand that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I know it's not the same, but you can always, if you feel, you can always go out there in a few days to the NASA website and grab that video and hopefully watch it and not be so sick with the glitchiness. Okay, man, my pronunciation is horrible. Is it Dina Tabor?
Yes, that's correct. Okay, I think I know what Joanne's talking about, but I think it's in the video where it's so blurry, like it was something happened during editing.
Okay.
Because it's in the video. The rest of everything we've seen so far, I didn't think was glitchy or anything, but the video is very blurry, especially when it shows all the dates and the project codes that we have coming up in the very beginning. Those are very, very bad.
Okay. And yeah, I think, if my crystal ball wasn't so cloudy, I think it's part of that connectivity kind of stuff, or even like the communication, whether it's from me doing it or whatever. Yeah. Sorry about that.
I think it's because they were expanded so far out. Because they even whoever did that one talked about expanding it so we can maybe see it better, being bigger, and all that did was make it blurry. So it's got to be with the original screen.
Oh,
that's what I'm talking
I thought it was maybe because they were trying to take a video of the computer and it's blurry.
I guess we're gonna kind of probably table this a little bit because not everybody had the same experience. I do, like I said, I apologize for the video quality that you all experienced. I know sometimes to save bandwidth, if you had your video turned off, I see that you both don't have your video turned on. So, sometimes that helps with the bandwidth. And I think when stuff gets kind of chopped down, think of like you're on the interstate going 100 miles an hour, and all of a sudden you get into a construction zone, you're kind of slowing down, and the packets just are coming across slowly. So I'm going to stop right there because I couldn't do anything about it right now. But the next person I have is Karen.
Yes, I just had a question. I've been with the agency a long time, but you folks use so very many acronyms. They all make sense to you, but we do have a lot of new people, and I still don't really have a comprehension on a few of them. Could you ever send out a listing or post it on the website of what all your acronyms stand for? Perhaps that might be helpful to some, especially some of the newer folks.
No, that's a good idea. I made a note.
Okay.
But yeah, we do talk a lot of different things, especially when you say, hey, NPR's website. No, not the news media outlet. It's the Northern.
Well, yeah, there's just a lot of things that you use acronyms for. So it's just an idea.
Well, we're trying to save you if we abbreviate, you don't have to hear me talk so much. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm all for that. But
I made a note. Thanks, Karen.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
It seems they gave me one in my original handbook for when I was first hired. but that was 5 years ago too now.
Yeah, as far as the acronym stuff, there could be some things, acronyms for crop stuff, but maybe not so much for, when we say June APS, Agriculture Production Survey, stuff like of that nature. I think we'll have to dig through. And like I said, we'll dig through the archives and see what we can find or write up for you. I don't see any more hands.
I have a quick question on the being you guys switched the ARMS one's name to the integrated survey or whatever.
Yep.
When we're doing that survey, are we supposed to like let them know that they may be called for the ARMS 2 and the ARMS 3?
Yeah, I think it kind of talks, it's a ARMS phase 1 and integrated screening survey. Back in the olden days, it always used to be called ARMS phase 1, the screener survey, right? And then I'm going to lie to you, 10 years ago or so, they started incorporating, because we were adding vegetables and stuff like that, where there's a veg chem and stuff like that. So it became an integrated survey, and that's where the ISS, and they do veggies every other year. So that's where that part comes in. But yeah, you're correct, because it's still the same old to us. We don't have the veggie program. So yeah, they will be eligible for the follow-on for ARMS 2 and possibly 3.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other hands coming up? I have not been paying attention to the chat, so.
We've been taking care of it, Travis.
Perfect. Okay, it looks like a lot of stuff was reporting the pros, the good and the bad, the ugly of the watching the videos remotely, and / the videos will be posted here, hopefully the first part of next week. Okay, so if I could do an auctioneer stuff, I can't, so I'll save you the ear tone that I will give out. So on the count of three, I don't see any hands. Going once, going twice. Folks, it's been great. Enjoy that you guys came out and entertained us again tonight. We're appreciative of all the things you guys do out there. Keep up the good work. The lines of communications are strong, so we do definitely appreciate that. And the people in Nebraska that are doing all the editing, boy, they do love the notes. So keep on sending your notes their way. And again, stay safe out there, folks. It's the summer. It's going to come here, and before you know it, it's going to be hunting season in the fall. So here we go, fall. But enjoy your summer. Until we meet again,